Hey, what's up, you guys? And of course, welcome to another alternative factuals video. I know it's been a little bit, like I said, the summer is a little iffy when it comes to YouTube and videos and even viewership. Most people don't really, well, they're not on YouTube as often unless there's a really big reason to be on YouTube. And I try to keep the videos down to about, like I said, 2 videos a week now, officially, I guess. But if I feel that there is something that needs to be discussed or something that you guys want to kind of interact with, anything of that nature, I will make a third video for the week. But obviously when the fall comes around, when all the TV shows are coming back on, you will definitely be getting consistently 3 videos and all that good stuff. But today's topic is very interesting nonetheless. We have officially confirmation basically that Cloak and Dagger and Runaways is actually going to be crossing over for the 3rd season of the Runaways TV show that currently is taking place on Hulu. But before I dive into any details and what that means for both TV shows, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. And let me know your excitement for this, I guess, crossover. How you feeling about it? Do you feel like it's going to be better? Do you feel like it's going to help Cloak and Dagger with their ratings? Whatever you feel, let me know. And without further ado, let's kind of jump right into this. Alright, so like I said just a couple of seconds ago, the upcoming season 3 of Hulu's superhero show, The Runaways, will include a crossover episode with the freeform episode of Marvel's Cloak and Dagger. So basically this is just confirming that they exist in the same universe, obviously, and all these shows do exist in the MCU in one way or another. So maybe they take place after everything happened in terms of the snap, maybe before, maybe they were affected and they just didn't really reference it in a TV show. That's perfectly fine. We don't need too much details about that. You know, you can kind of fill it in wherever you feel like it should be, but there isn't much details yet about the subject in terms of like the whole overlap of the 2 shows. But they obviously are 2 shows that are relatively popular for the most part, even though Cloak and Dagger did suffer some ratings drop in season 2. But I already discussed a video about that, and I'll try to remember to leave a link down below about it. But if you don't see a link down below, just check out the Cloak and Dagger playlist. It'll be in there somewhere. But so let's discuss, what does this mean for both the TV shows that they're doing a crossover? Alright, so for those of you who are unaware, Cloak and Dagger and the Runaways, they do have actually some comic book history together. You know, they did actually work together on more than one occasion, and they actually made a pretty good team due to the nature of their abilities. Now, the real reason I feel like, even in the comics, I feel what they're going to do when it comes to the TV show, when it comes to their crossover, for the most part, Cloak and Dagger mostly deal with Roxxon Corporation and what they did to them and their whole conquest to take over financially when it comes to military-wise, powers, abilities, all that stuff. They always sought to kind of gain power in any way, shape, or form. Now, Roxxon is notorious for working with other, evil clandestine groups of people, which do include the Pride. And we already know the Pride involves the Runaways, which is basically their parents who are part of this evil organization. And I'm not going to get into the whole plot of the show and all that stuff. If you're watching this video, chances are you're watching both of these shows and you're well aware of what they are. So here's what's going on. All right, so for the most part, when it comes to Marvel Comics, Roxxon Energy Corporation, or Roxxon Corp, is supposedly, or at least the more legal aspect of it, is an American multinational oil and gas corporation. And basically the main plaza, I believe it takes place in Manhattan, if I remember correctly. Everything seems to take place in Manhattan and New York in general, and it's one of the largest fuel conglomerates around the world in Marvel Comics. And obviously there is a Roxxon oil in real life, so there's that. Now, the sole purpose of this company, like I've said time and time again, is just basically to increase their profits. And basically they do have a legitimate aspect, the oils and energy and all that stuff, but they have been involved in many weird and questionable illegal activities, and most people don't even really know about what they're involved in. A lot of times they've been involved in situations that had to do with hiring or even creating Inhumans, trying to figure out how to take advantage of mutants, and even trying to take advantage of people who have abilities that necessarily didn't classify as Inhumans or mutants. And they do anything to get money. Their sole purpose is just it's money. That's all it is, money. How can they make more money? And if it's illegal, they'll do it. If it's legal, they'll do it as well. But it always has to be profitable, and that's why I think they're kind of going to have this connection when it comes to the Pride. Now, the Pride, for very similar reasons, based on that whole construction site that we saw in season 1, and kind of circles around what was going on in season 2, and basically the whole situation with Jonah intending to use this as a pretext to reach his ship to locate underground. All right, so his ship basically does contain technology that I'm pretty sure Roxxon would want to get their hands on, and in general, Pride did have technology that would actually make a lot of law enforcement and government agencies look pretty pathetic. Now, knowing Roxxon Corporation, if they somehow had a hold of that information, or if they had some sort of connection to that information regarding Pride, of course they would be either backing it financially, or they would want some sort of involvement and they would strike a deal. Now let's kind of dive into the fun part of this. Since we already know that Jonah and then I believe his daughter Caroline, they are a race of extraterrestrials basically called the Gimmerim. And for a little bit of history, the Gimmerim are beings made of light who have achieved a huge amount of success when it came to technology and their advancement, and they were extremely advanced millennia before we even figured out how to kind of make fire and all that stuff. We were on a basic level compared to what they were doing. And by the time we even started to develop certain technologies, or even just basic understanding of how things worked on our own planet, they already had mastered like space travel, building spacecrafts, and biomorphic shells. And this allowed them to change their shape. And all this information was recorded on a piece of technology, and it was called the abstract. Now, this is where the connection starts to lie. Now, if, let's say, for example, Roxxon Corporation actually somehow manages to, work with Pride and work with Jonah and somehow get a hold of this information called the abstract, this would launch them into one of the most profitable, most advanced corporations on the planet. Also, what makes this interesting is the fact that Jonah actually did manage to kind of have this relationship with Leslie Dean, which was basically, I forgot, why am I forgetting names so quickly, but Carolina's mother, and they had a kid, and then she was a human Gibberim hybrid, basically meaning that unlike her father, well, her biological father in terms of, genes and genetics, she does not have to possess somebody's body in order for her to stay in a solid form. She can actually switch between, being human and using her abilities, which then itself makes her a very powerful person. And she actually displayed some very interesting abilities throughout the show. I think she can fly, and like I said, light can be manipulated in many different ways, in which it can actually be used to develop even more spaceships, more spacecrafts, and even just harnessing light as some form of energy could power cities, can power nations for an untold amount of time if you have enough of it. So this is what makes this interesting. Having access to this type of technology, extraterrestrial technology, which, like I said, the Runaways is basically about, and the whole mixing the supernatural with Cloak and Dagger, the fact of the matter is their abilities are not necessarily off the planet or extraterrestrial, so to speak, but they are supernatural base, where Cloak's abilities give him access to a dimension of pure darkness, which comes from the supernatural in Marvel Comics, a form of magic. And Dagger, her abilities coming from the light force, which basically gives her access to summon different aspects of light, change it, manipulate it into any shape that she wants, simply because she has access to a dimension of pure light, which was granted through some sort of scientific accident, and then obviously gave her access to a dimension, and she can manifest her abilities in that very specific way. Both have their own very interesting perspectives in terms of their abilities, as well as the Pride would be actually very interested in the type of powers that are being developed, and that includes people like Mayhem, who split and then somehow combine back into singular beings with enhanced strength, enhanced speed, and just increased durability. They both would have interest in kind of meeting each other halfway, extraterrestrial meeting supernatural. And it's kind of, it would be nice little mix, but also something fun to think about is, imagine these two corporations if they hypothetically were to succeed. Now imagine having someone like Tyrone or Tandy, for example, and then they have a kid with someone who was like Carolina, who was a hybrid, and then somehow they gain access to both abilities. That would mean they would be someone who would access a dimension of pure light or darkness and would still have the abilities of the Gimmerim, which would make them one of the most powerful people to walk on the planet Earth, especially if they were already someone who's Gimmerim, which allows them to access and manipulate light because they're beings of light. And then having access to the light force will only amplify their powers by tenfold, meaning they would have basically control of somebody who is basically a walking, I don't know how to even describe it, like they basically like a collapsing star. They I don't know what you want to describe it, but that's someone who is extremely powerful. And then let's say if they have access to both light and darkness, at that point their powers just have a total range of the entire spectrum of complete darkness and light and everything in between. So you can imagine what they can do with that kind of abilities. But Roxxon Corporation and Pride do have things in common, and they have worked together throughout the comics, and and these combination of kids will pose a problem to them, especially based on the information that both of these groups of kids know. So we can definitely look forward to that. But in terms of Cloak and Dagger and their TV show, it is still very much unclear if they're going to get a third season. There hasn't been any confirmation or anything like that. However, it is still very much possible. This is actually good news. Seeing that they're having a crossover means they're way more likely to have a crossover than not a crossover, but they're way more likely to have season 3 than basically what we thought a couple weeks ago, not hearing anything. So I believe since they're having a crossover, there's a really good chance that they're going to get a season 3 at the very least. So we'll figure out what's going to happen going forward with Cloak and Dagger pretty soon, I'm sure. But let me know what you think about all this stuff. You know, I know I threw a lot of stuff at you in terms of just my theories, but also the possibilities of what the relationship between the Pride and Roxxon Corporation and just how things might work during this crossover episode, but just little fun things to think about. But if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think, and I hope to see you later on. Peace out.